Hello to all you wonderful people out there. If you're new here, you're listening to the Ace for Waves podcast with me, Annabelle Schneider. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Saturday, wherever you may be, whether it be Saturday morning, afternoon, night. Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. Hope you've had a wonderful start to your weekend. And today's episode is a really special one. For those who don't know, sports has been a huge part of my life. Growing up with two brothers who played at a young age and continue to play to this day, and if it wasn't for them, I would have no idea what kind of sports knowledge or what my life would be if I didn't have them in there. I am joined today by someone who first introduced me to the world of sports. He started off his sports journey playing t-ball at the prime age of 4 years old in an Igloo Dome in the Quad Cities. He would then later go on to join his middle school basketball team, did travel baseball, travel basketball, and continued to play basketball and golf in high school. My first real understanding of football came from when he joined a flag football league back in our hometown of DeWitt, Iowa. And now he is a really hard supporter of the Dallas Cowboys. From just understanding basic flag football to staying up late at night watching Dallas Cowboy games with him. I am delighted that he decided to come join me in Cedar Falls for the weekend for a really big game, and he was more than happy to come and support and see his only sister that he has. And this is my awesome brother, the lovely, the wonderful Michael Schneider. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for bringing me on.
He started doing sports when he was 4 years old. Basketball and baseball were the main ones. And as the oldest sibling and the older sister, I was forced to come along to his games back when I wasn't allowed to really stay at home by myself. But I'm glad that my parents brought me to the games because I got to see him develop and become the player that he is due to starting off in these little travel and youth leagues. Our youngest brother is also a big sports person, currently plays basketball and golf in high school, also played baseball. He's a big kind of into the esports realm also, but I have never touched a golf club in my life, so we're gonna leave all the sports to them. The only sport I ever did was cross country, which you can't really play, you can run, but I was really fortunate and really grateful to be given the opportunity to run in community college as well, something that I think will stick with me for the rest of my life, and learning just valuable lessons, doing sports at the college level, and also balancing schoolwork too, which is really important. Tomorrow is a big day for football fans, and maybe the occasional sports fan if you're big into sports here and there. Let's see, it's the biggest day in the football calendar year, where we will have a rematch of the game that occurred 4 years ago and was arguably the last time we all saw a game live on TV before a global pandemic took over. And we are talking about the Super Bowl 58 to be exact. Just some context here. This will be a rematch of Super Bowl 54, the last time we saw both of these teams going head to head. Michael and I, today, we will be previewing the Super Bowl. We'll be giving our thoughts and opinions. But what makes this Super Bowl so different from the one in 2020? Can the 49ers finally complete a quest for 6? And why there will always be a label stuck to the quarterback who was drafted in the 7th round. Plus, can Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid win back-to-back Super Bowls, something that was only accomplished by Tom Brady with the 03 and 04 Patriots? So, what happened in Super Bowl 54? Super Bowl 54 saw both the 49ers and the Chiefs playing at Red Rock Stadium. At halftime, the score was 10-10. By the end of the third quarter, the 49ers were up 20-10. That final score of the game was 31-10. The Chiefs scored 21 unanswered points, and in that game, Jimmy Garoppolo threw for 210 yards had 1 touchdown throw and threw 2 interceptions. That's the quarterback for the 49ers at the time. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs, threw for 268 yards, had 2 touchdown throws, and threw 2 interceptions as well. So my question to you, Michael, is what happened to the 49ers in that fourth quarter?
Yeah, the fourth quarter for the game of the Super Bowl 54 was, I just think, the passing game for the Chiefs really attacked the gaps in the 49ers defense in that game. And I feel like, they did allow 21 points in the fourth quarter, which is a lot of points to give up in one quarter. And especially the momentum switched right when Patrick Mahomes threw about a 50, 60-yard throw to Tyreek Hill on a 3rd and 15 with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which really swung the momentum for the Chiefs, gave them life. And I just think the 49ers defense just collapsed, ran out of gas at the end of the day, and couldn't get the job done.
But we look at the halftime score. That halftime score was 10-10. It was tied, and both teams did not score them. Like in the grand scheme of sports, 10 is really not a big number when it comes to a football score. That's like a touchdown and a field goal. So do you think it was like a pretty even playing like game up till halftime at least?
Yeah, I would say there was a pretty evenly matched game for sure in the Super Bowl. I mean, both quarterbacks threw for 2 interceptions, and I would just say, yeah, it was kind of evenly matched for sure heading the halftime or like just after halftime pretty much. So, I mean, quarterbacks played pretty similar statistics during the game. So, but overall, the Chiefs got the win. I think the Chiefs got their running game on point better than the 49ers did. They were able to, get big gains for first down, second downs, and I think the 49ers kind of struggled to just get the run game going. So
Back and forth like that. Never mind. So like, and then we saw like at the end of the third quarter, the score was 20-10. The 49ers were up. They had a 10-point advantage over the Chiefs. So that should have given them like the opportunity to go ahead with a 10-point lead and like put that offense and defense to the test for the Chiefs. So what changed between the third quarter and the fourth quarter? What did the stats show that said that? How did it all ultimately fall at the end?
yeah, well, we know that Jimmy Garoppolo threw an interception in the fourth quarter, so that kind of swung some momentum heading the Chiefs, gave him some life back. And what I said earlier about the Tyreek Hill catch was a big deal. Patrick Mahomes threw some great balls in the fourth quarter. And yeah, I just think the 49ers defense just wasn't able to stop them. And Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches in Chiefs history. Was able to put a really great game plan into the fourth quarter and just find a way for the Chiefs to win.
Andy Reid, most people like dub him as one of the greatest like offensive geniuses behind the world of football, outside of maybe Bill Belichick, but that's another story for another day. So the Chiefs have like a great offense, and with their quarterback Patrick Mahomes, obviously with Tyreek Hill at the time before he got traded to the Miami Dolphins, they had a bunch of star players, but the 49ers also had star players at the time. So my question to you is, did the Chiefs actually win that game based on overall performance from both the offense and the defense from the start of the first snap to the end of the game, or did the 49ers just completely and utterly blow it?
I would say they blew it. The 49ers blew it. Going into the fourth quarter, you got a 10-point lead. You just had to just play some solid defense, and their defense was playing really well the entire till the third quarter or till the fourth quarter when wheels kind of fell off for them. But I do feel like it kind of goes both ways. The Chiefs didn't win it. Mahomes made some great plays down the stretch to prevail through the game and get the win for them. But overall, I would say the 49ers did lose that game and just kind of blow it. So.
And at the time, the 49ers, they had Nick Bosa, they had Dre Greenlaw. They had Fred Warner. They had Kittle. They had Debo. I don't think they had Ayuk at the time,
They did not have Ayuk.
but they had like really star players. So do you think that part of the collapse in the fourth quarter could be put on the defensive coordinator at the time, or does that fault go to Kyle Shanahan?
I think it goes towards like Kyle Shanahan. I think, I do feel like during this game though that Chiefs did have more star players, more star players than the 49ers did. They had a better rushing attack than the 49ers did. I mean, you have Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, in that game, who is one of the best wide receivers. I think he had second or third most this season, but Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes were one of the best trios I've watched in football for sure. So I feel like the star players there for the Chiefs really stood out in the Super Bowl, and I feel like kind of goes on Kyle Shanahan just not adjusting right in the fourth quarter to get the win, and Andy Reid just had better plays, and yeah, that's what it came down to.
And when people like compare Kyle Shanahan now back to 2020, there's some things that have stayed the same. There's still like a heavily run offense team, and since trading for Christian McCaffrey midway through last season, I think that the 49ers, you could argue that their offense has gotten better because they have a solid option at running back with one of the best running backs in the league at this moment. So do you think that San Francisco kind of abandoning their run game in the fourth quarter led to a collapse or led to 0 points scored?
Yeah, I would say so, because usually when you have the lead in football, you usually want to run the game or just run the ball usually because you want to take time off, and you obviously don't need to throw it necessarily. So trying to get the run game in the fourth quarter when you're up is a big thing, because if they can't stop that, then you've got a great chance of winning. But they weren't able to do that down the stretch. They were having to throw the ball more than they wanted to instead of running it, and that kind of was hard for the 49ers to do, and that might have cost them the game to not get the run game going, and that would give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, which was pretty balanced on both sides of the ball. So
And both teams I know can run the ball. And now with Christian McCaffrey on the 49ers and obviously Isaiah Pacheco with the Chiefs, those are some really good running backs. And I think we can pull up the stats here. How many times did San Francisco run the ball in Super Bowl 54?
yeah, in Super Bowl 54,
Stop
the
It's making a motion
what?
with the chair. Just leave the chair down.
Right. Will do.
Sorry.
For the 49ers, they had 22 rushing carries. And then the Kansas City Chiefs had 29 rushing attempts, I should say. So Chiefs had more rushing attempts. 49ers did have more yards, but I would say they weren't able to stop. Damian Williams had a great game for the Chiefs, 104 yards and 17 carries and a touchdown. So and the 49ers pretty much they did that all in the third quarter though. They had about 141 yards rushing in the third quarter. Weren't able to do that in the fourth quarter. Chiefs were able to do a lot of them most of the game, and so yeah.
And one of the biggest pieces to the 49ers offense when you look at this team now and 4 years ago, realistically, is Debo Samuel. Was Debo a big part in Super Bowl 54? Did he have like a role in like either rushing yards or receiving yards?
Yeah, I would say he has a similar role to what he has this year, doing more jet sweeps. He's there for jet sweeps usually. If you want to throw off the defense, get the defense shifted and movement, and he's usually there for the receiving yards too. He can do a little bit of both. And that's what he did actually in the Super Bowl 54 with 3 carries, 53 yards, and he was also the grab 5 receptions for 39 yards. Wasn't that good in the receiving end, but for sure in the rushing game he was good in that aspect.
And now now with Super Bowl 58, we're seeing both defenses go up against one another again. Obviously, defensive coordinators will plan and prepare accordingly for how they want to kind of stop the opposing team's offense. But when you look at the numbers and the stats on ESPN, both of these teams are not good at stopping a run, heavily like influenced run offense. 49ers haven't been able to stop it the past two playoff games in the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. And I would argue that those two teams are not really, if you put them on the grand scale of things, I hope that this doesn't come out offensive, but they're not really good, if we quote unquote good teams, when we look at AFC teams in the playoffs compared to NFC teams in the playoffs. But the Chiefs have not been able to stop a run for what it seems like most of, if not all of this season. And they ranked like in the high 20s when it comes to run defense. So if one of these teams cannot stop the opposing team's offensively schemed run game, is that going to be the make or break factor in Super Bowl 58?
Yes, I do think that. I think both teams tomorrow will definitely try to establish the run game early in the game. I think more the 49ers will do it more. I think Patrick Mahomes has been in this situation. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been under pressure situations where he delivers really well. And I think the 49ers will definitely try to run the ball a lot more than usual with Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, because he statistically was one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. But I also think with an inexperienced playoff player in Brock Purdy. I mean, Mahomes has had a lot of playoff experience. Brock is still an inexperienced playoff player still. So I think get him settled in. I wouldn't be surprised if they run the ball 3 straight times tomorrow to start the game for Christian McCaffrey. But that's a big, huge thing the 49ers need to have is a rushing game going. They can't establish that, and the defensive line for the Chiefs is able to contain Christian McCaffrey. Could really be a long day for the 49ers trying to keep up with the Chiefs, who have a high-powered defense with Chris Jones in the middle of that and L'Jarius Sneed on the outside, more than likely going to guard Debo or Ayuk. For the Chiefs, I would say they are going to try to run the ball as well. Isaiah Pacheco, we've seen David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions have some great games. I know first drive of the game for the Lions 49ers game, Jahmyr Gibbs ran for 42 yards and got a touchdown the first drive. I know Montgomery scored in the 49ers game. So the 49ers defense has allowed some running backs to have some touchdowns and some big gains. So I wouldn't be surprised for the Chiefs to get their rushing game going with Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I think they're going to try, both teams are going to try to establish the run. I also do think they will try to get the passing game going as the rushing game is incorporated into the game plan for the teams. So it'll be fun to see how which team is able to have a better running game, which I think will be the difference maker in the game, is who can get the rushing game going to start the game to the end, because that's a big factor both teams do really great at, and we'll just have to see which defense will be able to stop it and contain it.
But if we're going to piggyback off of that, Kyle Shanahan was had a run game established in the Christmas Day game against the Baltimore Ravens, and it was working. And ultimately, he decided to abandon it completely, leave it up to his quarterback to make those throws against the Ravens defense that in the end led to 4 interceptions. And with the Chiefs defense, who is actually probably ranked in the higher top 5 of the defenses, they are also the youngest defense in the NFL out of all 32 teams. So with the youngest defense, but they obviously know how to come up with big plays. They rank in the top 5 for a reason. Brock Purdy is going to have, if not 100% A perfect to a B+ game in order to win. And do you think that interceptions are going to be a reason why these 49ers lose?
Yes, I do think Brock Purdy, I mean, he's been doing a great job of this, excluding the Ravens game, he's really been good on touchdown to interception ratio and just turnovers in general. I just think just take care of the ball, just don't make the, mistakes where you can, if you have to throw the ball away, do it. Don't try to force it into a tight gap in between two defenders. It's going to be one of those games where you're just going to have to take your own medicine and, just throw the ball away, live another down. That's what we saw in Jordan Love against the 49ers when he threw that late game interception. An inexperienced quarterback. It's technically his rookie year. His first year played behind Rodgers, so this was technically his first year as a starter. Should have thrown it away. It was only second down, first or second down. So he'd have another down regardless. But he decided to throw it into double, triple coverage against 49ers. 49ers intercept it. Game's over. That's a play where, if it is a close game and the 49ers do need a touchdown or just a field goal to tie the game, that Brock just needs to make the right decision, throw it away. Just don't throw it away on fourth down. But if it's first, second, or third down, throw it away, live another down, try to get a better play in. So
I think what we've seen too is like over posts on social media and just the media in general, one of the biggest headlines leading up to the Super Bowl is, well, Jimmy Garoppolo led the same, I say same, they obviously have new players now, but Jimmy Garoppolo led the same 49ers team to a Super Bowl and was labeled basically being carried by his team. That label has stuck with Brock too. People will say that he was carried by his offense and stuff, but is there really much of a difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and a Brock Purdy 4 years later?
I do think there's a difference. Obviously, when Jimmy Garoppolo was in the Super Bowl, it obviously wasn't his second year in the NFL. And he wasn't, Brock Purdy's coming off an injury. I think a lot of people forget that he came off an injury and he's just made the Super Bowl, which any injury in the NFL is hard to come by because you have to go through that stage of, man, when I come back, and all the things that go into an injury, and the rehab of it is really stressful for a lot of NFL players. But I do think there's a difference. Brock Purdy statistically has had a better year in his second year than Jimmy Garoppolo did, and he's only in his second year and he's already in the Super Bowl. Would have been in the Super Bowl last year without his injury that he had against the Eagles. But I do see a difference. Brock Purdy, I think, is just a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And you see Jimmy Garoppolo went to the Raiders this year. Really didn't have much success. Got hurt, got benched as well from Aiden McConnell. And just haven't seen the Jimmy Garoppolo really that a lot of people expect him to be really well, but just haven't seen that side of him yet.
So why do you think what you've just talked about, obviously Brock is in a different league, so to speak, compared to Jimmy. So why do you think that these comparisons are still sticking? Why do people compare these two quarterbacks together? Is it because they're on the same team and they're both quote unquote, if we want to say like the carry term, are they both being carried by their offenses? Or
yeah, I would say they just kind of compare them just because, well, obviously there's the current 49ers quarterback and there's a previous quarterback for the 49ers. So you kind of want to do comparisons like what I did for the Cowboys too. I did comparisons with Tony Romo and Dak, see how they matched up, Brock and Jimmy, kind of compare them, but also you can compare them as well because like I can't compare Tony Romo to Dak Prescott because they have different coordinators, different offense coordinators and head coaches. But for these two, Jimmy and Brock, you can't compare them because they did have the same head coach. That was their coach, and they had pretty much Kyle Shanahan has the same game plan for mostly for them. So you can kind of compare statistically on rushing attempts and receiving, just throwing the ball to receivers and just passing yards, all that stuff. So,
and we're gonna do like a little specials video, so to speak, after this episode when I upload it and air it. But it's a Saturday specials extras thing, and we're gonna talk about some NFL teams and putting labels and expectations on them. So we're gonna dive into that a little bit more because I think That's a very interesting conversation that we need to have, that should be had, and coming from just fan perspectives and what we've also seen through watching these games and looking at stats. I think you'll be surprised to know why some of these teams and putting expectations on them is just not really the right way to go about heading into a new season. What to watch out for this Super Bowl? Obviously, we all know what happened in 54. Chiefs scored 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. 49ers abandoned their run game. The run scheme the Chiefs ultimately figured how to stop it, and they just couldn't score in the fourth quarter. So, what are 3 things to watch out for in Super Bowl 58?
Yeah, 3 things to look out for is number 1, running game, what I kind of talked about earlier. A lot of both of them love to run the ball. They've had a lot of success running the ball as well, and just to establish that early in the game is crucial to build momentum and just kind of take pressure off the quarterbacks. Take pressure off Brock, because I mean he's in his 2nd year, and if you can get the running game going, they'll put off a lot of pressure for Brock. And giving the ball to CMC is, you just have to do that if you're the 49ers. And it also give pressure off of Mahomes, knowing that Isaiah Pacheco running downhill, getting upfield a lot. I think the key for both teams is getting the running game early started. Second one, I would say, is tight ends. We got 2 great tight ends playing tomorrow. Kansas City, we got Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends in Chiefs history, possibly in the NFL history. And you got George Kittle, who is hysterical on the field sometimes.
Established tight end university.
So he's funny, and he's a great guy too. Great tight end for sure. So I'll see how incorporated they are into the game plan for tomorrow. I expect them to have great days receiving the ball, doing blocking schemes for runs. I just feel like those 2 guys are great tight ends who are going to play a big factor in tomorrow's game. And then also my 3rd point, I would say, is quarterbacks. There's a big difference in playoff experiences for both. Mahomes, who this will be his 3rd or 4th Super Bowl. He's been a great player. He's been playing at a high level for sure. I would say he's been playing at a high level in the second half of the season. Not at the first half of the season, but second half he's been playing well. In the playoffs, he's been playing well. So he's had a lot of experiences in the playoffs. And then you got Brock on the other side, who this will be his first ever Super Bowl. Probably pretty pumped up for it for sure. Pretty excited for it, I would say. But just to see how he deals with, the Chiefs defense and Chris Jones in the middle, and able to try to win his first ever Super Bowl, which will be pretty cool coming from Iowa State University. Go Cyclones. So we'll see how those 2 do. I think it's going to be a great battle between Mahomes and Purdy tomorrow. And we'll just see how it goes.
And I'm gonna give you guys 3 players to watch out for. He gave you 3 things to kind of look out for in Super Bowl 58. 3 players who I think will be big factors. And one of those players is Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs. If you can, like Michael talked about, like what you kind of talked about, if you can get a run game going early, and you pull up the game against the Detroit Lions, pull up the game against the Green Bay Packers, look at that tape, look at how this defense is lined up, and look at how they stop a run. They are not good at stopping a run offense, and that was evident when, like what you said, when the Lions opened up on their game-winning drive, 49 yards, and boom, walked into a touchdown. And from there on, between that first snap essentially and at halftime, they had built a 17-point lead. So if Isaiah Pacheco can be implemented into Andy Reid's offensive scheme, that the 49ers are not good at stopping a run. So play to their weakness. Try to get those points. Try to get those easy points, if you will, and trick the defense. trick them, like line Pacheco up in a running back or line him up in a wide receiver slot, go to him, and then ultimately the Chiefs love to do like special trick plays. So like you said too, I wouldn't be surprised if Travis Kelce was another big factor in this game, knowing how you can kind of work him in all sorts of different slots. And this San Francisco defense, you can't really put like just one guy on Kelce. You're gonna have to double team him in a way, which can also leave room up for more players to be open. So Andy Reid's an offensive genius. He's gonna know how to work that 49ers defense and make them try to go cover as much spots of the field as possible. And I think that all starts with Isaiah Pacheco. Another player to watch out for. I wouldn't be shocked if Brandon Ayuk was another big factor in this game. Ayuk went for, I think, 1,000 yards, receiving yards this season.
Mhm.
He's a great receiver for Brock to throw to. Obviously, there's Deebo Samuel in a wide receiver slot. Deebo can also play running back, but Ayuk had that great 50-yard catch, which, as we all know, against the Lions, it did bounce off of a defender's face mask. But Ayuk stuck with it in the end, managed to catch the ball as it was tipping off of the face mask, caught it, and then that set up a touchdown at the start of the third quarter, which ultimately was the beginning of a comeback for the San Francisco team. I think if you can get Ayuk some open, slots, if you can kind of work him in different areas in the offense too, similar to Kelce, get Ayuk involved as much as possible, because I can guarantee you that this Chiefs defense is going to be focusing on Christian McCaffrey. They're going to be focusing on Deebo Samuel, and they're more than likely going to be focusing on George Kittle. They probably will not be paying much attention to Brandon Ayuk. So Ayuk needs to have a big role in this game. And then
Also to add to, 49ers have allowed in their last 3 games over 100 rushing yards to their opponents. 182 yards they allowed against the Detroit Lions, which is a big deal. And I bet the offensive coordinator and Andy Reid are looking at that like, let's get the running game going first quarter in the Super Bowl. Also add, Chiefs are going to probably throw some blitzes at Brock Purdy for sure. Knowing he's an inexperienced second-year player too. Eric Spagnuolo, a great defensive coordinator for the Chiefs. I would not be surprised to see him throw some blitzes in there, drop in some coverages, get Brock Purdy uncomfortable. So we'll see how that is.
And putting on tape too, Brock is also a really good player when it comes to tight window throws. I think he ranks first in the NFL in quarterbacks when it comes to tight window throws and percentages when being blitzed. So even if the Kansas City Chiefs do decide to throw blitz at him, he knows how to get it out in time to avoid stats. But like with every team, and with every quarterback, you will get sacked at times. It's just not going to be, you can't really prevent that. And I think that also comes with how experienced your offensive linemen are. And 49ers have a great left tackle in Trent Williams. The third player to watch out for, I don't really think this is the player, but I think that he is ultimately going to either receive the praise or the blame for this game. And that is 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. He is new here. DeMeco Ryans was the 49ers defensive coordinator last season and seasons prior. He took a head job with the Houston Texans, which he did an outstanding job with. Led the Texans to a playoff appearance. Houston Texans won one. He has done a great job with that organization and working with the rookie CJ Stroud,
who will, I feel like, win an MVP here in the next couple of years. I think him or Jordan Love, great players, great young talent there in Houston for sure.
CJ is unbelievable. I believe he did win Rookie of the Year at the NFL honors too.
Yep.
Really special. And we're going to actually talk in later episodes too about why we have previous assumptions when it comes to NFL drafts and how CJ Stroud ended up being this perfect fit for the Houston Texans, and how his draft stock and draft tape showed all the right qualities, but ultimately led to Bryce Young being drafted first, when tape shows that he really wasn't the better quarterback, so to speak, than CJ Stroud. We will talk about that later on. I think even with this year's NFL draft coming up too, there's already comparisons between Caleb Williams and Drake May, who's going to go first. We'll kind of compare those two, and college experience also, which Brock did all 4 years in college, which I also believe is a really big factor for how he's playing in the NFL, having 4 years of college underneath his belt. But to get back on track, Steve Wilks. Wilks has been in the hot seat for most of this season. The 49ers lost 3 straight games kind of in the middle of the season, and most of that blame went towards the defense, which again circles back to not being able to stop a run related offense. And Wilts just hasn't been able, from what we've seen, hasn't been able to find the right solutions for actively stopping the run game. So if the 49ers do end up losing and the Chiefs have a really great offensive run scheme, all that blame, I feel like, is going to go to Steve Wilks. But he needs to make the adjustments early in the first half. We saw second half adjustments kind of against the Packers. We saw some second half adjustments against the Detroit Lions, but the Detroit Lions just ultimately stopped running the ball in the second half, which I don't know why they would do that when it was working for them.
They just kind of let the game get out of hand and just I mean, the fumble from Jahmyr Gibbs really swung momentum, and they just lost it in the end. Just didn't execute on a lot of plays. And I think, though, they haven't had great starts either, the 49ers in the playoffs. They've been down at halftime both games in the playoffs. So I don't think you can do that against the Chiefs. You're going to have to start out fast. You're going to have to keep up with them. And it can't be a game like you did the start of the game against the Packers or the Lions.
I will say adjustments can now be made after halftime. I think if it's not working within the first 3 offensive plays for the Chiefs, Steve Wilks needs to find that adjustment, needs to make changes, and he needs to make them fast. Because I believe that finding the adjustments at a halftime, if you're down by 7 or 10, so to speak, it's just not going to be enough. So that's another person to watch out for, Steve Wilks. I think lots of people are going to be wondering, can he come with a great defensive scheme for the 49ers, and how will they execute that? Will he make adjustments during mid-play, during the game, everywhere? How is he going to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes and this really talented Kansas City Chiefs offense? But is there concern for the defense on both teams? We've obviously talked about how they're not great against the run, but 49ers are also not really good at man coverage either.
Yeah, I would say 49ers defense a little they haven't been a little shaky at some points in the year. But I would say the Chiefs do have a better defense, just because I feel like they can stop the run a lot better than the 49ers can. Even though I do think the 49ers do have a lot of talent, and they are capable of being a great defense. And I do see the Chiefs as a better defense. I think Eric Spagnuolo has been a great defensive coordinator for years, and I expect him to have another great game plan heading into tomorrow. So
2 players I would watch out for the 49ers defense, aside from the experienced players like Fred Warner, Eric Armstead. Obviously, those 2 will be big into the game, but Charvarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw have been some big names throughout the regular season too. And Dre had the 2 interceptions against the Packers. Would you be surprised if they were not big into stopping these offensive runs, or just filling into man coverage, because Dre is a linebacker?
Yeah, I would say for sure they're going to play a big role. Dre Greenlaw is going to play a big role. You know, he's been a great player for them this year, and he's going to have a big task on, you know, staying in front of Pacheco if it's a pass play or just trying to stop the run, getting the right gaps between rushing plays. But also, I would say to another matchup I like to watch is Nick Bosa or Chase Young going up against Jawan Taylor. If you haven't heard the name of Jawan Taylor, he's the most penalized offensive lineman in the NFL this year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he has just been off the line, a lot of false starts too. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs bring in a tight end just to make sure he's got enough protection over there. Because if it's one-on-one with Nick Bosa or Chase Young, it could be a long day for the Chiefs for sure. I think that side of the line is going to be huge. I'm pretty sure he's a right tackle. So I think on the right side of the offensive line for the Chiefs needs to be at its A game, or else Mahomes is going to get pressure from the right a lot tomorrow. So Nick Bosa, Chase Young, I bet they're targeting Jawan Taylor, who's the most penalized offensive lineman this year. I know he has maybe 14, 15 penalties. So
that would also circle back to Steve Welch, you know, watching the tape, seeing how this Kansas City offensive line lines up, seeing what their weakness is, which is obviously one of their weaknesses would be Jawan Taylor, the tackle.
Also that came up through 3 weeks of the NFL this year. No NFL offensive lineman has been called for more penalties than Jawan Taylor.
Something to watch out for. So obviously we've talked about, you know, both of these defenses are not really good, as you've heard multiple times. You can run the ball on these teams that will obviously set you up for a win more than likely. But aside from just a run game in general, how will each team win this Super Bowl aside from run?
Also, just before you say that, through 3 games, he had 8 penalties, guys. That's a lot of penalties. Back to the question.
That's like 2.5 penalties per game.
Yeah, that's a lot for just one player. So back to the question.
So if obviously we've talked about how both teams can run the ball, that's obviously more than likely going to set them up for success to win. But let's take away the run, for example. Let's say that both of the teams' run game just get shut down. The defense figured it out. They know how to stop the run. Taking away that run, how is each team going to win the Super Bowl if you take away their run game?
If you take away the run game, I think both sides are gonna. I think both sides obviously are gonna have to rely on just the passing game, just getting their wide receivers involved. You know, Rice on one side for the Chiefs, great player. You got Travis Kelce, another great player. I think you're just gonna have to find your great weapons on the outside for wide receivers and tight ends. Obviously, 2 great tight ends playing in this game as well. So I do bet it. I think if the 49ers defense does, or 49ers rushing game gets shut down, I do see the Chiefs winning this game if it does get shut down early, because I just don't think the 49ers pass block for Brock, the offensive lineman for the 49ers, are just not up to the standards. I think both offensive lines really aren't the best in the league, if I'm being completely honest with you. I would say they're kind of middle of the NFL type, like ranked, I would say. So there's gonna be some blitz. There's gonna be a lot of blitzes from both defensive coordinators for sure, trying to get pressure into there. So just making sure you running the routes that will give you maybe shallow crosses. You know, I'm not going to see a lot of deep throws. I think tomorrow I'm going to see more shallow crosses, some 5, 10, 15-yard throws tomorrow for sure, more than long deep throws, because I think the offensive linemen will kind of struggle tomorrow and get pressure to both quarterbacks.
Ultimately, it's going to come back to quarterbacks. You have one quarterback who's been in multiple Super Bowls already, 2-time Super Bowl champion. And on the other side, you have a quarterback who is in his 2nd year, drafted in the 7th round, last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. They both have had really good seasons. I would argue one quarterback's probably had a little bit more success than the other one, if we're going off of just stats.
If we're going off by stats, Brock did have a better year than Mahomes. And it was kind of by that 7th, 8th week, Brock was so much better than Mahomes. Mahomes started to get it going during the second half of the season. I feel like more of the last 4 or 5 games where the Chiefs needed to make a big push. they were kind of on the edge where are they going to make the playoffs or are they going to be a high seed in the playoffs? But they battled through and just wanted to check some. I mean, they won their last 3 out of 4 games, which was huge for them to get into the playoffs after, losing 2 at the Packers and then at the Bills. But they were able to win at the right times, find momentum at the right time in late January. Just middle to late January, they were able to find some great wins against the Bills on the road and the Ravens on the road, which are 2 tough places to play at. So
quarterback runs too, I think it's also gonna have to be a factor if you can't find the people to throw. Obviously, we've seen against the Detroit Lions and the Packers in a way, Brock knows how to use his legs. He can use those legs to make big plays. And obviously Mahomes is a great runner too. So if the quarterbacks can use their legs in this game, also try to find ways to extend plays, that will ultimately also help them set up their teams for the success that they need. So final Super Bowl picks. What are your picks for Super Bowl 58?
I'm going to roll with my boy Brock Purdy. I think the 49ers are going to get some pressure on Mahomes. I do think that they're going to need to make open field tackles too. And just make sure to get Mahomes down. Mahomes sometimes squirms out, gets out of sacks sometimes. Making sure you contain Mahomes outside of the pocket. Just don't let him get to the outside of the pocket, because when he gets to the outside of the pocket, he can do incredible things. But I do think the 49ers will be able to stop him, stop the run. I do think they'll be able to get the run game going with McCaffrey, whether it's up the middle runs or they might throw a pitch to the outside so he can get to the edge. Do think they will prevail. I think they're going to win by a field goal, 27-24.
I have no definite answer, and I know that's probably a really bad answer to give you guys, but obviously we've laid out concerns for both defenses. For offensively too, the Chiefs have had struggles with receivers dropping balls. I don't know if that's going to be a factor in the Super Bowl or not, but they have been notorious for dropping balls in crucial moments. So that's something to watch out for. 49ers offensively, if you can stop Deebo Samuel and you can stop Christian McCaffrey, take those best players out. I don't think Brock is up for, going without 2 of his best players and making the throws that they need. And obviously with just not really performative offensive line too, getting quarterback sacks and stuff, pushing them backyards. So I don't have a definite answer. I do believe that both teams are going to find ways to win. I do really hope that the defenses have gotten a plan and action ready to roll for tomorrow. Offensively, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, I think are both offensive geniuses in their own team in their own rights, respectively. So it's going to be a really great game. We're going to have a really good Super Bowl halftime show with Usher. Are you a big fan of halftime shows?
A little bit. And I hope to not see Taylor Swift as much as I hope to not see her, because I know they're going to show her a lot too.
Well, you should be probably just pissed off a lot of this audience right there when you just said
Well,
that.
I hope they agree with me. But we'll see. She's in Japan right now, so she's going to be flying in probably tomorrow sometime.
You're going to have Swifties attacking you for saying
Yeah,
that.
I know I will. You guys can hate me. I don't think that.
I think Usher, just stepping aside for a second, Usher would be a great can't wait to see that. He's been in the industry for over 20 years. Some good hit singles. Yeah, I'm club with my homies. GLBI, keep it down the low key. Good. Rihanna, last year's Super Bowl halftime show with Rihanna was pretty good. Dr. Dre and Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar. Do we have The Weeknd? What's your favorite Super Bowl halftime show of all time that you've seen?
Probably Snoop Dogg and Dr.
The-
Dre. Yeah, that was a good one for sure.
That was really good. I think, did Bruno Mars perform at a halftime show?
He might have.
I want to say so. I love Bruno Mars is one of my favorite artists but so is Kendrick. I have no doubt that Usher is going to do a great job, but it's going to be hard to top Rihanna. I feel like
Yeah.
Rihanna. I think hers was like the
Yes,
most.
Bruno Mars did in 2016 Super Bowl in Santa Clara.
I feel like Rihanna's is like the most viewed Super Bowl halftime of all time now. It's gonna be hard to top that, but I have faith in Usher. I think he's a great performer, obviously a great songwriter, great artist overall in general. He can dance too. He can pull out some dance moves too. They were in for a real treat with him. And that will do it for this episode. Once again, thanks to Michael for coming on. Had a blast talking Super Bowl 58 with you. And this should be a good game. And there's a lot at stake for both the 49ers and the Chiefs in a way. Next week episode, we're going to focus on media outlook of player evaluation in the NBA. So how do we evaluate players based on what we see and what the media tells us? And does social media have a role in that? But for now, enjoy the Super Bowl. If you guys throw Super Bowl parties, if you host Super Bowl parties, I hope you have a great time with friends, family, whoever that may be. I hope that the game is a good one for your guys' sakes. And to all the Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers fans out there, wishing you all the best of luck. I know your teams are going to do great. And I feel like we're in for a real special Super Bowl. And we could witness history between the Chiefs winning their third back-to-back with Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy becoming one of the lowest drafted quarterbacks ever to win and start in a Super Bowl. So that will do it for this. We're going to do another little Saturday specials video right after this, but that's all I have for episode 2. Be sure to stick around next week for when we do our media evaluation in the NBA. And once again, Michael, it's been a blast talking this with you.
It's been great joining you guys talking about the Super Bowl. So thank you guys for tuning in today for this podcast. So
it's nice to have someone else to provide a little bit of football analysis with me here. So have a great rest of your Saturday, wherever you may be, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.